Welcome to Australian Politics. I'm your host Lachlan, and today we'll be diving into the International Democrat Union, or IDU, and its significant influence on Australian politics, particularly as we approach the 2025 federal election. As Australians gear up for another important vote, it's essential to understand the various influences shaping our political landscape. And the IDU is one such force that often operates behind the scenes. Let's delve into what exactly the International Democrat Union is. Founded in 1983, this global organisation brings together over 80 conservative political parties from more than 60 countries worldwide. The IDU was established by some of the most influential conservative leaders of the 20th century, including Britain's Margaret Thatcher, America's George H.W. Bush, and Germany's Helmut Kohl. Think of the IDU as a kind of international networking club for centre-right and conservative political parties. It provides a space where these parties can share ideas, strategies, and support one another. Some notable members include the Republican Party from the United States and our own Liberal Party of Australia. The organisation's primary goal is to promote democracy and centre-right policies globally. They do this through regular meetings, conferences, and policy exchanges between member parties. This allows conservative parties from different countries to learn from each other's successes and challenges, ultimately strengthening their political positions in their respective nations. Australia's involvement in the International Democrat Union runs deep, with several prominent political figures holding key positions within the organisation. Most notably, former Prime Minister John Howard served as the IDU chairman for over a decade, from 2002 to 2014. During his tenure, Howard worked to promote liberal democracy, individual freedom, and economic growth, closely aligning himself with the political traditions established by the IDU's founders, Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan. Currently, Brian Loughnane, the former federal director of the Liberal Party of Australia, serves as the IDU's deputy chairman. Loughnane, who has been involved with the organisation since at least 2017, brings his extensive experience as a political strategist to the role. His connection to Australian politics extends through his marriage to Peter Credlin, a prominent political commentator on Sky News and former Chief of Staff to Tony Abbott. The Australian presence in the IDU continues to grow, with former Prime Minister Scott Morrison now serving on the Honorary Advisory Board. Our current opposition leader, Peter Dutton, actively participates in IDU events, recently representing the Liberal Party at the 2024 Wellington Summit. Additionally, Liberal Senators Simon Birmingham and Jane Hume regularly attend IDU gatherings, where they engage in discussions about campaign strategies and policy development. This strong Australian representation in the IDU demonstrates the significant role our conservative politicians play in shaping international centre-right politics, while simultaneously being influenced by global conservative movements and strategies. The IDU's influence on Australian politics primarily flows through its deep connection with the Liberal Party of Australia. Through this relationship, the organisation serves as a vital conduit for the exchange of policy ideas and electoral strategies that have been successful in other countries. This international network has become increasingly important in shaping our domestic political landscape. One of the most significant ways the IDU affects Australian politics is through its role as a policy laboratory. When conservative parties in other countries implement successful policies, the Liberal Party can study these outcomes and adapt similar approaches for the Australian context. This creates a sort of international conservative think tank effect, where policy solutions are tested and refined across different nations. The organisation also provides Australian conservative politicians with sophisticated campaign techniques and strategies. From innovative fundraising methods to advanced polling techniques and cutting-edge technology use, the IDU helps its members stay at the forefront of modern political campaigning. This knowledge sharing can significantly impact how elections are fought in Australia, as parties implement proven strategies from around the world. The networking opportunities provided by the IDU shouldn't be understated either. Australian politicians can build relationships with like-minded leaders from across the globe, creating valuable alliances that can influence both domestic and regional policies. This is particularly relevant in the Asia-Pacific region, where the Asia-Pacific Democrat Union, headquartered in Kingston, ACT, helps coordinate Conservative Party's activities and responses to regional challenges. However, this international influence also raises important questions about policy independence and the growing alignment of Australian conservative politics with global right-wing movements. As our political parties become more integrated with international networks, we're seeing an increasing uniformity in conservative policy positions and campaign techniques across different countries. This standardisation of conservative politics could be reducing the space for locally developed solutions to uniquely Australian challenges. While the IDU's influence on Australian politics is significant, the organisation faces several notable criticisms that deserve our attention. For instance, there have been ongoing concerns about the organisation's lack of transparency in its operations and decision-making processes. This opacity makes it challenging for voters and observers to fully understand how the IDU shapes policy decisions and electoral strategies within its member parties, including Australia's Liberal Party. Another significant concern revolves around the IDU's associations with controversial political figures and parties worldwide. Some member parties and their leaders have faced accusations of undermining democratic institutions in their own countries. This raises important questions about the organisation's commitment to democratic values and its potential influence on Australian political discourse. The IDU has also been criticised for potentially contributing to increased political polarisation. By creating a global network of conservative parties that share similar strategies and policy positions, critics argue that this can lead to a more divided political landscape where compromise becomes increasingly difficult. We're seeing evidence of this in Australian politics, where policy debates are becoming more aligned with international ideological battles rather than focusing on local solutions. There's also the matter of the organisation's limited reach in developing regions, which some argue creates a skewed perspective favouring wealthy, established democracies. This bias could affect how Australian conservative politicians view and approach international relations, particularly in our immediate region, where economic and political circumstances might differ significantly from those of traditional IDU strongholds. As we approach the 2025 federal election, these concerns become particularly relevant. Voters need to consider how this international influence might affect domestic policymaking and whether it aligns with their vision for Australia's future. The challenge lies in balancing the benefits of international cooperation with the need to maintain independent, locally focused policy development. Thanks for listening to this episode of Australian Politics. Today, we've explored the International Democrat Union and its complex relationship with Australian politics. As we look toward the 2025 federal election, understanding these international connections and influences becomes increasingly important for making informed decisions at the ballot box. The IDU's significant presence in Australian conservative politics, from John Howard's chairmanship to current involvement of key Liberal Party figures, reminds us that our domestic politics don't exist in isolation. Whether this international influence strengthens or challenges our democratic processes is something each voter will need to consider carefully. I'm Lachlan, and I'll catch you next time for more insights into Australian politics. Take care.